Solutions labs are these social innovation processes that really are focused on looking at the root causes of some of these deep-seated social and environmental issues. And this particular lab is really exciting in its focus on housing solutions for Indigenous communities. And I think there's going to be an intersection of a lot of different issues that we're exploring as we look at the concept of home and what that means for housing in Indigenous peoples' traditional territories.
We're still looking at housing needs, rampant housing needs across Canada for First Nations peoples. The technological solutions, all the sort of financial context is there, but there's still sort of a knowledge action gap. And what we're looking at from the perspective of this Solutions Lab is the disruption of relationship between First Nations communities and the ecosystems that they have called home, since time immemorial.
This project is about housing, but more specifically it's about home. And home, particularly from an Indigenous perspective, is much broader than the house. It also encompasses the natural environment, the places where our food and water come from, the places where ceremony take place, the spaces where our children play, and the land where our ancestors lay to rest. We're working with a learning community of 5 nations, 4 of which are on Vancouver Island. And our prototype community, the one that we're working most closely with, is IISAAK Nation, which is located on the southern tip of Vancouver Island.
If you look at a First Nation concept of a home, it is not your house. A home is your territory. And that's the true meaning of First Nations and their home.
Community health and well-being and ecosystem health and well-being are inextricably linked. And so when we look at developing a housing strategy or an IPCA strategy, those two things cannot or should not exist independently of each other.
It was important to bring Indigenous perspectives and Western perspectives together to create a new way of looking at this concept of home as an ecosystem, and see what synergies can be made from these two ways of thinking coming together in a way that we can explore what policies, what mindsets are preventing us from building communities that encompass this feeling of home as an ecosystem.
In a real way, the house is the centerpiece. It's a centerpiece for ecosystem and the human element of the ecosystem.
And our home was meaning that all of our resources are spread out along the whole territory. And it is our unwritten Indigenous natural law to take care of that home. So we would like to obtain our villages back. We would like to bring them back to its natural state, and we'd like to enhance for the next 100 years. When we talk about getting the village back, we're talking about the territory, because that's who we are.
And so the IPCA methodology and model can offer an alternative pathway to economic certainty through truly empowering Indigenous peoples to become the authors of their own destiny.
So the lens of the IPCA re-empowers the spirit of peace and friendship between First Nations and newcomer societies in order to create more resilient communities that are based on responsible economic development and environmental stewardship.
We have to figure out how to do housing different. We have to figure out how to do community infrastructure differently, food systems, energy systems, the whole 9 yards. And that's what makes an IPCA different than any other park or protected area, is that we're very thoughtful and intentional about community within an ecosystem. The initial scale-up opportunity is within our community of practice, the 5 First Nations that we're working with on Vancouver Island and in mainland British Columbia. But there's 27 IPCAs currently getting funded across Canada that all have the same kind of community needs. I don't think that it would be much of a stretch to say that there's well over 150 different First Nations, if not more, who would be interested in the outcomes of our project.